Oh, hey guys. I guess you're wondering about that antenna testing, huh? Let's get started. When we left off, I was testing an authentic TBS Triumph against a clone that I found on eBay. And I had some really disturbing results from that. Things happened that I did not expect to happen, and which invoked a whole bunch of other stuff. And irregardless, I shared it because I wasn't sure what to think, and I was looking for some feedback and maybe even a little direction, you know, just a little insight or something as to what happened, right? So, the first thing I have to tell you is we did these tests all over again. Because what I found when I started testing my quad, because I went all the way back to the beginning, right? Started checking for ground faults and things like that. And what I found was that I was getting some sort of ground disturbance on the quad that I was using. So, what we ended up using was my go-to Rand brand quad. Now this is just because this type of quad does not make it easy to get in there at the pigtail to change antennas. This almost makes it not quite real worldish, because with it being this length, you know, it's going to be well out of the way, but it'll still be close enough that I feel confident in the results. But we're going to use this because this is what I use every day, and I get, unless something's going on, I get crystal clear reception from this. So, that's the first thing. We're changing quads because this one is verified to work all the time the way I expect. The second thing is, some people said, well, maybe you got a bad batch of Triumphs. But what I did was, I bought another set of Triumphs. Now, I already had some pagodas, I had some old clover leaves sitting around, and so we're going to throw those into that test too. And then something really awesome happened. Ready Made RC saw my video and reached out to me and said, hey, would you be interested in testing some of our Hooters in your real world tests and using them to compare and contrast against other antennas? And I said, sure, send them over. So they sent me a set. So the way this is going to work is that we are going to have two of the same antenna at all times being used. We are going to use, for instance, a Triumph on the receiver and a Triumph on the transmitter. And we're going to use a clover leaf on the receiver and on the transmitter. And the clone Triumph and the Hooter. So that we're always comparing with the same type of instrumentation. Because one of the things that will affect reception is axial ratio. And so I kind of want to take that out of the equation, under the understanding that each antenna should have the same axial ratio as its twin. We have an authentic TBS Triumph. These, as far as I'm concerned, and probably most other people, seem to be the industry standard. But these are extremely robust as far as durability goes. There's nothing you have to do to these to get these to hold up. What we looked at after that was this TBS Triumph Clone that, again, I got off of eBay. Now, I'm being as vague as eBay because there are a lot of sellers selling these. And there are minor variations in each of these as well. So, even from the original. So it's something you got to keep your eye out for. We've got our authentic Triumph coming in at 13 grams. We've got our clone Triumph coming in at 10 grams. As I had said, this is considered to be your industry standard. Now, I really briefly want to talk about the difference between these two. And in my other video, you can see the construction differences, which is probably going to be largely attributed to the weight difference. This shell on the clone is nowhere near as strong as this shell. Not to mention, and when I say as strong, when I say that this is nowhere near as strong, the plastic is not as thick, it is more brittle, so it's not as durable. Now, as far as the rest of the materials and the hardware, you know, actually, The stems feel like they could be the same in regards to the case. The authentic is matte and the clone is shiny, you know, dull, shiny. One of the other differences, this little white dot here in the logo. In some of the clones, this is rounded or oval shaped and not square, which it will always be on the authentic Triumphs. Also on the SMA connectors, for the authentic Triumphs, you will find that there are logos and things etched into the surface of the metal. And on the clone, there are no etchings. Alright guys, first things first is if you want to see the guts of these antennas, go refer to the other video. Next, this is just summarizing what's on your screen here. All of these tests are done at 200 milliwatts. They're all in a residential environment so that we can see all the things and get to experience all the things that most people are going to experience when they're flying. Here's just a verification of the settings so that you can see that, you know, I'm running on 200 milliwatts. You can also see the channel. All right. What we're seeing here is the authentic TBS Triumph on the top and the eBay Triumph on the bottom, which is the clone. And I start out by doing just some really close flights through the front yard here. I mean, there's no thick brush or anything. There are a few trees, but nothing thick. You know, obviously there are houses around. I like to start this way because if there aren't any inherent problems, I'm not getting into the thick of it too quickly. Now, after I do this, I like to fly behind the house. This is so that we can see how the reflections are being handled and see how the radiation pattern is handling obstructions and things. And then after that, what I like to do is to take a pass just down the street where our brush starts to get a little thicker. We get some very minor obstructions. And then we hang a left around that really thick row of hedges or trees or whatever you want to call those things on the left. Because those things are an excellent indicator of penetration, as you'll see here in just a second. We get just behind there and you'll see that the signal's cut out totally and completely in some cases. So the last item I like to do is then just head down the street a little ways. This is more distance, but less obstructed distance, so that we can get an idea of, you know, how the antenna is handling those items. So all the tests that you see from here on out are going to have the same type of format. I'm going to fly the same type of path, and you're going to see the same types of things, including even the pauses. Now, those pauses are put there intentionally so that I can sync where each flight is for the major points. So, when you guys are ready, we're going to go ahead and go through this again, talking about what we're seeing for each of these antennas. Okay, so as I fly through the front yard here and just around the trees, you're going to see that both of these antennas perform pretty much identically. Now, one costs half as much as the other, but that aside, their performance seems to be on par. You notice the authentic TBS, and I don't know if it's because it's more sensitive or whatnot, but seems to get a little bit more breakup, but it's nothing even close to unflyable. So then we head to the backyard. And again, what you're going to see is that the performance is very, very close to each other. And that neither antenna is any better or worse than the other in any of these areas. And then we're going to hang a right and head down the street and head towards those hedges. Of course, my right starts with a left, so why not? And as we start heading down the street, and that small mushroom tree or whatever right there on the right is there, we have some cars and some other items, you'll notice we start to get a little bit more breakup, and this is the case with most antennas. But right here, you're going to see that the clone actually handles these hedges quite a bit better than the Triumph. And then we head down the street, And we're not really going to see much difference here either. You do see just a little bit more breakup, but again, I'm questioning whether it's because the Triumph is maybe a little bit more tuned or a little bit more sensitive, or I'm not sure what the word or what's going on, but you'll notice a little bit more breakup. Not a huge concern, just an observation. And then we come back and we land. Now, you do see that breakup there in the video with the clone. And I'm not entirely sure what that was, but I didn't see it at any other time. So that's where we're at with both of these. From a performance perspective, both of these perform very similarly. Now, as much as I would like to say that the Triumph is the clear-cut winner in regards to performance, I can't do that. In fact, if I really had to state that one of these was better than the other, I'm going to have to say, based on the evidence presented in this video, that the clone is the better performer. Now, in this equation, though, it's not just the performance, it's the durability. If there's one thing all of us quad pilots are terrible about, it is really, really abusing these aircraft. And I'm going to tell you, as evidenced by that other video, that if you are beating this thing on gates or bashing it into the ground or on trees, that there is no way that the clone is going to hold up as well as the authentic Triumph. So even though the Triumph costs $20 versus the clone's $10, you're probably going to have to buy far, far fewer Triumphs than you are clones. At which point, your best bet is to purchase authentic.